Welcome to Generous Impact. My name is Amanda Brummett. I'm joined today by my co host, Brett Brummett. And our guest today is Jess Wiederhold, founder and executive director of Crazy Love Africa. In this episode, you'll hear how a Denver mom of 7 took the loss of her adopted children's mothers and carried it into a movement that restores dignity to single mothers in Western Uganda through sisterhood support circles, micro-business grants, fair trade artisan work, and education sponsorship for their kids. Well, Jess, thank you for being here with Brett and I today. It is so good to get to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the invite.
Ah, you wear a lot of hats. Mom of 7, child and family therapist, founder and executive director of Crazy Love Africa. I'd love it if you could take us back to the beginning, who you are personally and professionally, how your years walking alongside hospitalized children shaped the work that you do today, and then we'll get into Crazy Love Africa.
Sure. Yeah. You just stressed me out there a little bit thinking about all those hats. Right. We're like, oh
You
my
can take
God.
some off. You're only
Woo!
podcast guest for the next however long.
I'm only wearing one hat right now. That's great.
Unless
I
the kids find you, and then wherever you're
Yeah,
hiding, then you have second hat.
exactly. I am hiding, but they will find me and they usually do. I mean, they look on Life 360 and says, she's here somewhere. Where could she be? Right? She's not in the hammock resting, so who knows? Yeah, thank you for that question. Definitely, I'm a mom first, right? And everything I do really flows for the fact that I love people and I love my family and I love community. So professionally, I went to school and I got a master's degree as a child and family therapist. And I was, working alongside of kiddos, teenagers and their families, navigating lots of really hard stuff for a long time. Those were hard moments, right? Navigating death and loss and trauma. And that really changed me deeply. And most of those years were even before I had my own children. So, but, one thing that came from that was just teaching me that, right, the meaning of dignity, belonging, community, and just truly walking alongside someone, right? The kind of idea that people just need presence. And so I really think those years kind of shaped my heart to bring me to where I am today with Crazy Love Africa and the fact that we don't need to necessarily fix people, right? We're there to walk alongside of them, to empower them, to help build communities and just really see the strength and the wisdom of the people that you're around.
Jess, that is a beautiful explanation of where your life was and where you were headed. Some of the language you used almost made it sound like there might be a deeper faith journey that was walking along with. Does that apply here?
Absolutely. I grew up in the Midwest, small town, and my parents really instilled the values of faith and service and servant leadership. Then I went away to college and I met some really radical, cool Catholic nuns who taught me to kind of see the world on a bigger scale than that small town that I grew up in. And so, yeah, that's kind of where my faith beginning started and just kind of those values of serving others and loving unconditionally those around you.
It's beautiful.
Yep. And then as you get into the depth of it, you've been adopted the 4 children from Africa that had lost their mothers to AIDS. Like, something shifted, and you turned that personal heartbreak and that journey into founding Crazy Love Africa. So what led to that moment back in 2014?
Absolutely. I often think that people when they adopt, they think they're just adopting these children. But what happens is you become connected not just to them, but to the entire communities that they come from. Our children are from East Africa, so the countries of Ethiopia and Uganda. So those, relationships they had in those first years of life with their Ethiopian and Ugandan families and communities, we're never going to leave them and we're always going to be a part of us. And when we traveled to those countries, like my husband and I, we saw the devastating impact that poverty, that HIV, the lack of opportunity was having on families. And especially it hit me hard as a woman, the impact that it was having on women. The fact that my 4 children all lost their mother to AIDS when HIV is just now a chronic condition where people can take medications and it's a lot like diabetes and live a long and healthy life. So there was definitely an injustice element that I saw with them living in a developing country and not for whatever reason not having access to those medications, or the stigma was so high that they weren't able to get the medications. And injustice doesn't really sit well with me. I'm just like, maybe I'm the mama bear, right? You're just kind of like, this isn't right.
I
And,
mean, should it sit well with any of us?
you know,
Probably not. I realize that some
probably not.
things are the thorn in our sides that really prompt us to move forward.
Yeah, for sure. But everyone doesn't necessarily get to go to East Africa and see that injustice firsthand. So, right, like I knew because my eyes were opened and I knew I was now aware of what was happening, there was a need to do something about it. And also knowing that I'm one little person, what could that be? We adopted our children. I don't think I said that. We adopted our children when they were older. So they weren't all babies coming home. My oldest daughter was 12 years old when she moved to the United States. So she lived 12 years of her life in Uganda, and she knew firsthand the injustices, right? Like she knew what happened to her mother and was able to tell me that story so well. And I wanted part of her healing, part of my kids' healing to be, what can we do to give back to your villages, right? What can we do to empower women so other women don't orphan their children, right? That they can be empowered to work, to stay on their ARV medications. So that was really important to us.
So you referenced very early on the part of their community that came with them. You knew full and well this was not a surprise that you were grabbing tangible memory history, not, like when we think of adoption of,
Mhm.
small children, infancy. So that's pretty a big step from that spot. Having that context, I guess you already always knew you'd have some connection back to their communities they were from, that's got to be a huge step to take in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know a lot of folks when they adopt, they're like, oh, we would, for example, Ethiopia, we would love to live in a place where there's a strong, Ethiopian American community where our kids can get plugged in. That was also important to us. We have a great community here, but also we knew we wanted to travel back on a regular basis. They had older sisters that I wanted to make sure they saw, that weren't adopted because of their age, as well as some biological fathers, two biological fathers that are still alive. And so, yeah, we wanted to make sure they were connected to those folks, but also, like, knew their roots and could still speak their languages. Like, my kiddos in Uganda, they speak a language called Rotoro, and without practicing it with people who speak it, it's very hard, hardly anyone who speaks it here. So, yeah, all of that being very important, but also being able to give back and be able to support women and children there was really important for all of us.
Yeah, I love that you were intentional about choosing to let their former life very much continue to exist and be part of the Weeder Holt family, and that now your multiple families blended and they don't have to come here and pretend that they've always lived in Denver and had a very normal life. So Brett and we've never been to Uganda or Ethiopia, but we've been to neighboring South Sudan. So I have a visual in my mind of what day to day might look like for these people.
And
And
it's probably wrong.
it very well could be wrong. What I'm thinking through is getting access to medications is like 873 on their list of clean water, food, safety, things like that. So I'm wildly curious to hear the details of Crazy Love Africa and what work you do, how you do it, and how you manage it in an environment there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for the very beginning, we were focusing on economic empowerment. So we started very innocently, as a lot of things do, really grassroots, and said, this Christmas, we would like to give a micro business grant to a couple women in the villages where our kids lived in Ethiopia and Uganda. It's like a $500 grant. So that's kind of the economic empowerment part. The interesting thing, I had read about micro business grants and loans and I knew that they were effective, but then we saw that it worked. Like it really supported those women and changed their outcome,
Yeah.
their trajectory in life. Yeah,
500 US dollars would be life changing in either of those places,
for
right?
sure. For sure. One of the very first women that we gave a grant to, her name was Tina. So that was almost 12 years ago. She has built her own home. She has a number of businesses now, right? We do the same thing here. We start one business and then from that capital, we can start another side hustle and such. So she has a number of businesses now that and some of them she works on with her children. She's also a mentor. She's a mentor to other women living with HIV. She does so much in the community, especially within our Crazy Love Africa community. So, yeah, we started with the economic empowerment part, and then we listened to the needs from there. We were like, this is working. We probably should keep doing this. And there was a need to help with child sponsorship. So in Uganda, especially, school's not free. People don't realize that. So these mamas were working so hard to try to come up with school fees for their children, and most of them not able to do so. And many of the mothers that we were working with themselves didn't finish school, right? So they really wanted that for their children. So they came to us and asked, could we start a child sponsorship program? So, we got this grant, we're working hard, but we also need help, being able to send our kids to school so we can get further along. We started that program. And then the next thing they said was, we need a community. We need a community of sisters like us who are also living with HIV. There's so much stigma around HIV, and we need to be able to talk about it with somebody who gets it. And we need to be held accountable to other women that will say, hey, have you taken your meds? Right? Have you gone to the
Mm.
clinic? Have you gotten your labs drawn? Like, we all need that. We all need accountability. And especially as a single mother, like you can be very isolating. So that was great. So we started these sisterhood support circles. The women themselves started savings groups within their circles, which is really great. So they started saving money together. They started keeping each other accountable. They started visiting each other's homes. At the same time, we hired a social worker for our program that could do those home visits and really support those mamas and their kiddos. So yeah, we kept growing, but it was because of the women's leadership and their vision and their ability to dream for their future, which they didn't necessarily have when they started in the program. Most of them had kind of given up hope. So that was a big part of it. That $500 grant gave a lot of hope, or even just our program, us saying to them, we believe in you. We
Wow.
totally believe in you. Yeah.
That's really cool. I know that there was the spot that you guys have more than 25 women. I feel like I'm feeling like the small community growing like wildfire. I mean, is 25 still the right number of the micro grant areas without thinking about the other ones, or is it still
Yeah,
still growth?
it's over 30. We also think about all the children, right? So all the children of those 30 mamas are also getting all sorts of training and obviously education. And then the thing that we are looking forward to this year, and this has kind of happened out of some sadness that has happened in Uganda over the past year. They have lost a lot of programs due to the withdrawal of US aid. And so there is no longer, at the clinics, there's no longer prevention programs and there's no longer support programs. Really, the only thing that they have is medications. So the medications are there. The medications are only in one spot. They're only at a regional hospital. For those people that live very far away, they have to come into that regional hospital to get their meds. So that has been a struggle, but we're going to try to pick up some of those programs that were lost, and we're going to start to run some of them, especially for women and youth at our community center. So that's going to be a big thing. So we won't just be doing, the micro business grants and serving those women. We'll be trying to really serve the entire community of people that are living with HIV, as well as prevention of HIV in the community. So that's going to be huge in this coming year.
That that is huge. And I know that you probably have a bunch of things that come at you that you have to figure out whether you can even say yes to all the crises. My guess from my limited knowledge site is there's a new crisis you could fix every hour, every day. And the
Absolutely.
ones that you take on tend to take long-term tentacles off of it. I'm assuming it's the same for you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. You guys know this. Like when there's usually crisis after crisis, right? Of things and support, which is so great that we, have on the ground leadership. We have folks that know their community that are making the decisions, knowing how best to problem solve, right, through each crisis. And what's going to be empowering to folks because we don't want to just give handouts. We want to empower folks too and really just be in solidarity with them.
When you're thinking through all the programs, the growth, and even to the new stuff, is there a specific story or one that just sticks out to you that's just like that this is the one that hits home hard for you?
There are so many. It was interesting. We just got done with a board retreat in April, and every board retreat, I like to share an empowering story of one of our sisters and their families and such. And we think that we've heard them all, and they just cry, cry, cry. Like, oh my gosh, this is why we do this. This is why this is so important. I shared a few minutes ago about Tina being one of our very first sisters, and she has been such an inspiration to everyone. It was probably the middle of last year when Tina found a woman that used to come to the clinic, and Tina was educating women about HIV at the clinic. That woman had not been coming to clinic probably for 6 months. And Tina wasn't sure where she lived. She lived in a pretty rural area, but Tina was able to go out into her village and find her, and she was very, very sick. So in the HIV world, most people know the term AIDS. When someone's HIV progresses, they often will get to stage 4 AIDS, which is kind of the end, right? That's when someone hasn't been taking their medications and they are susceptible to getting any and every infection. So she was what we would call stage 4 AIDS and had 3 little children and had just given up, had no economic opportunity. She was in a family of, she grew up in a family of one of 20. Like she was from a big family and kind of had been disowned because of her status. So Tina lifted her up, right, and took her to her own home that she was able to build because of her business grant and all the opportunities that she was given, right? And the hope really nurse her back to life, right? That was number one. You have somebody that's so sick, you have to nurse them back to life, cared for her children until she was like, I'm ready to live, got her back on medication, and then introduced her to her Crazy Love Africa sisters and said she's now one of our sisters. And so that's Rosemary. And we were able to get Rosemary a grant this past spring. And so she's now a part of our program and so healthy, and our kids are healthy. And she has just started a business. And this is what it's about. Our sisters are loving and empowering each other. The funds obviously are coming from the US side that we're able to do this work. We wouldn't be able to do this work if we didn't have, generous donors throughout the US. But it's definitely the women that are the leaders on the ground and they're empowering each other.
You
Yeah.
know you did have me, even though I know you're telling the story of the work, I was lost in the story. I'm like, "Oh god, she's gonna die." I'm
No,
bracing for the heartache. I'm just,
I
like,
would not
hanging on. Like, I
I would
forgot
not
that
do
the end
that
is
to you,
happy.
Brett.
Okay.
This is part of the story is that every year I will sit down with the sisters and we'll kind of review like, what did we do this year? And, what are we proud of? And what do we want to improve on? And they remind me every year they're most proud of, we're all alive. We're all surviving. And we take that for granted, right? We're like, of course you're all alive. But it's like, no, many of them, when they were diagnosed with HIV, didn't expect to survive. So the fact that they're all surviving after so many years is a complete miracle to them. So we don't take that for granted now. That's a pretty big part of the story for them.
Absolutely. And Jess, I have to say, the language you use around the women you serve and the terrible things they're going through and coming through is a masterclass on how to talk about humans. Like I've noticed you haven't said recipient once. You're calling them your sisters, and just I hope that's something we can all take from you and carry forward.
Yeah.
Another very
Yep.
intentional thing about you is you've decided to join the Fair Trade Federation, which I assume also makes your job a little bit harder, keeping
Yeah.
committed to all of those principles. What was your decision behind that? And then how does that shape your organization?
We kind of talked about, we gave each woman a business grant. And then the second opportunity was the opportunity to be able to make artisan products. So most of the listeners, I'm sure, know the beautiful baskets that are made in Africa. So many of our sisters were already making baskets, were already sewing textiles and things, but not all of them. Some of them were also making paper beads. We provided training for each of them if they wished to be a part of some type of artisan craft. So they could either make baskets, beads, or sew. And many of the women took us up on that. They wanted to be able to, like, if they had a shop, to be able to make baskets in the shop while they're waiting for customers. And then they would have more products to sell. And so the fair trade arts and crafts also kind of started innocently for us. That first time that we came home from Uganda, we just filled our suitcases with baskets, brought them home, and people love them. They're beautiful, right? They're like all over our walls. There's one sitting in front of me with fruit, right? Like, so we learned very quickly, we wanted things to be fair trade. We wanted women to make a good income for what they were making. I don't know if you know, but like a basket takes many, many hours to make, right? I think like 30 to 40 hours to make one basket. So we want to make sure that that was fair. We also want to be very ethical with our resources in Uganda as well. And so, yeah, a number of years ago, we looked into joining the Fair Trade Federation. So we made sure we were doing that the right way. So our women get a fair trade for what they make. And then the beautiful part of it is the proceeds from the products that we sell online and, here in the US, go directly back into the program. So it's really a win-win when you give a basket like that. You could feel really good that I've supported this woman and her family and her business, as well as keep these programs going so more women and children can join the programs. Yeah, but so it's been pretty amazing. And we've had so much fun. Just this week, we got, I don't know if you know what a serger machine is, but
I don't.
it's a
Oh, yeah. That's
Brett,
my
do you know?
child. Oh, it's my childhood. I don't know if y'all had them in Colorado, but I grew up inside a stretch and sew. Like
Oh my
I
god.
had my patterns, my invisible soap, the old like 1980s or 70s, like it looked like a tomato with the pins in it. I'm in on this story.
I like this. I really like this that you're well educated because I did not. I know nothing about sewing. But so this week we purchased a serger machine and we found a trainer that's training all of our women that are seamstresses how to use the serger machine. So it's all about, continuing their skills, being able to make new products. We're introducing a line this fall of cloth napkins and table runners. And so with beautiful African fabrics. So it's something that people throughout the world, we all love these African fabrics. Most people can not get enough of them. So we'll be introducing that in our Crazy Love Africa store this fall, and they're being trained on that as we speak. I don't know what time it is there, but they're working all week on this.
That is
Yeah.
fantastic. And also because the serger was like the double needle, like the regular sewing machine goes one way, the serger has the other needle coming up from the other side to make wider stitching in my
Yep.
memory of childhood.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't allowed to touch it because it was dangerous. So like this is thrilling for me. This is like giving someone a car that goes over 60 miles an hour on a dirt road. Like I'm like, get those baskets, more of them.
I'll have to send you a video of the serger machine of them using it. You'll love it.
Yeah. And are they taking custom orders? Because I need a dress for a Burundian wedding in July.
That's totally possible. Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk after the show.
Perfect.
All right. We've gone through the sisters, the kids. You've given the examples of how they get impacted and take on leadership. How are you working to make sure that that not only happens organically, but kind of more through that to keep instilling the belief that everyone has the right, the will, and the capacity to direct their own future as they too become the ones that are becoming the leaders?
Yeah, that is definitely one of the most important things for us. From the very beginning, that we've tried to build structures that are community centered and just driven locally, right? So we don't want folks to have to depend on us here in the U.S. We want real sustainability, which means local leadership, ownership, and decision making. We do have a U.S. board of directors, and that's because we have a 501(c)(3), and most of you know that's the law that you have to have a board of directors here. But we also have a board of directors in Uganda, which is really, really important to us. We invest really heavily in mentorship. So the women are mentoring each other. Tina, we just talked about, has many successful businesses. She's mentoring people. We have a number of sisters who have a lot of knowledge about HIV. They're mentoring people in their health. We work in leadership development. So we're providing, skills to develop leaders and really creating opportunities, for people to grow into these positions of influence or responsibility. We really want the young people to see themselves not just as the recipients of the support, but as the future, right? The future business owners, the organizers, the educators. Um, and for us, success is going to mean seeing Crazy Love Africa continue to thrive because of that strong leadership and that vision without anyone over here in the US. We obviously always want to be part of it. We love the global sisterhood partnership part of it, but we want to see them succeed for sure.
Jess, your entire story is so inspiring to me and to Brett, and I hope all of our listeners. I'm curious who inspires you?
Yeah, I was talking to a friend about that the other day too. It's not necessarily a single person, but I'm really inspired by organizations right now that are really deeply rooted in community just because we all are like really needing community right now. We all really need solidarity right now. I'm inspired by the work of dignity rather than saviorism, right? People that are really
Yes. Can you
work.
explain that just in case anybody doesn't know
Yeah.
what it means?
Yeah. I mean, most people have heard of different missionary groups and such that have gone over to Africa and it kind of labeled white savior type of thing and going over and trying to, yeah, I mean, the word save, trying to save people instead of empower them and seeing that they should be the ones to lead their futures. I still struggle. I take groups of people over to Uganda once a year. We call them our ambassador trips. We do a lot of training before I take people over to let them to know that you're going over there to learn, right? You're not going over there to teach. The way that we do things here in the US are not always right. Right? Raise your
Just
hand. We
just
know
just just a
we
little.
know
Yeah.
this.
Mm.
When I go over there and eat all the fresh food and vegetables, and here in the US, we eat a lot of crud, right? Like a lot of things out of cans and boxes. Yeah, they're doing a lot of things right. And we have so much to learn from them. So, not going over there acting like we have all the answers for them, but empowering them that indeed they do know their community's best and should be making decisions for themselves.
Beautiful. And then I cut you off and interrupted you. Were
Yeah.
there other organizations that inspire you?
Yeah, yeah. So here in Denver, I'm involved in what we call mutual aid. Have you heard of that term before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So mutual aid is a lot of solidarity work. And people in mutual aid, we're all volunteers. And so we do a lot of mutual aid around the unhoused community here in Denver, the immigrant community here in Denver. But it's also the same kind of idea. It's a solidarity work. Like, what are your needs? How can we empower you? How can we advocate for you? Because we do realize that, some people may have more power than others. And so we can use that power to help advocate, maybe on a legislative level or city, at the city level. So yeah, I'm really empowered by people that are doing that work of solidarity and mutual aid in the community.
Well, if someone's interested, I mean, baskets, purchases, textiles, but like that's
Yeah.
that's simple stuff. I mean, not impactful, but simple stuff. But what are some other ways that anyone that wants to be more involved or learn more, what's the best first step they can take?
Yeah, it's always easy, right, to jump on a website. So to look at our website, we're easy to find crazyloveafrica.com. Following us on social media, we try to post throughout the week about, what's going on in Uganda, what's going on with our work. Shopping fair trade is a really important thing to do. So if you're looking for a gift, look for fair trade products first. All of our products are on our website, so it's really easy to find. Sponsoring a student in their education and really knowing that, oh, wow, what a difference that makes. I know a lot of people have done youth sponsorship before. Our sponsorship program is really unique. It's a little bit smaller and intimate. You can really get to know the child and the family that you're sponsoring. We do take over gifts from you to them once a year and writing letters back and forth. But just knowing the impact that you're making is just really huge on those youth. Volunteering, obviously donating. If you're local, you can also invite us to speak within any community that you're a part of. And honestly, I think the biggest thing people can do is just choose to care. Choose to stay connected, to have knowledge of what's going on in a country that's not your own, right? And to ask questions and just believe that, the small acts of solidarity and love really do matter and that we really can grow through community. It's very impactful.
Wow. I'm going to take the words of one of my best friends. I love that. So thank you for taking that leap of faith and adopting kids from somewhere else that needed it and then learning more. And really thank you for the investment and the emotion, the time, and taking those small acts of asking questions. So we really appreciate what you've done. And thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much, Brett and Amanda. I've enjoyed it.
I sincerely hope that the Wiederholt story inspires you to make your community a better place, be that your workplace, your neighborhood, or the world. Find more about Jess's work at crazyloveafrica.com.